Subscribe to Cheating Tales Lab. Now let's begin. Warren Hardy pressed his foot harder on the gas pedal as snow began to fall across the Pennsylvania highway. The wipers swept rhythmically across the windshield, clearing away the fat flakes that seemed determined to obscure his view. Beside him in the passenger seat, his phone buzzed for the third time in 10 minutes. He glanced at the screen. Alexis, his wife. Again. He let it ring through to voicemail. They'd been married for 8 years, and lately, every conversation felt like walking through a minefield. The distance between them had grown so gradually that Warren couldn't pinpoint exactly when his wife had become a stranger. Maybe it started when her mother, Kay Barnett, had moved back from Florida 2 years ago. Or maybe it was before that, and he'd been too focused on his work as a civil litigation attorney to notice. Warren had built his career on reading people, on finding the cracks in their stories, on knowing when someone was hiding something. It's what made him successful in the courtroom. But somehow, he'd missed the signs in his own home. His son Ethan was in the back seat, supposedly. Warren adjusted the rearview mirror and felt his chest tighten. The car seat was empty. Panic flashed through him for a split second before he remembered. Alexis had insisted Ethan ride with her mother. "It'll give you a break," she'd said that morning. "You've been working so hard. Just enjoy the drive." At 6 years old, Ethan was quiet, thoughtful, and far too serious for his age. He had Warren's dark hair and sharp eyes, but lately, there was something haunted in the boy's expression. Warren had noticed bruises a few times, on his arms, his legs. When he'd asked Alexis about them, she'd waved him off. "He's a boy. He plays rough at school." But Ethan didn't play rough. He barely played at all anymore. Warren's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. "Where are you?" "We're already here. Mom's making dinner." He typed back with one hand while keeping his eyes on the road. 20 minutes out. The Barnett family home sat on 5 acres outside of Harrisburg, a sprawling colonial that Kay had inherited from her parents. Warren had never liked the place. It was too big, too cold, too filled with Kay's judgment and her middle daughter Henrietta's sneering comments about Warren's working-class background. The fact that Warren now made 3 times what Kay's late husband ever had seemed to matter little to them. This Christmas was supposed to be different, though. Warren had taken 2 full weeks off work, something he never did. He'd planned to use the time to reconnect with Ethan, to figure out what was wrong with his marriage, to salvage what was left of his family. Alexis had seemed pleased when he told her, though her smile hadn't quite reached her eyes. The GPS announced his arrival as Warren turned onto the long gravel driveway. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark except for a single light on the second floor. Strange. He'd expected to see Kay's Mercedes and Alexis's SUV in the driveway. Maybe Henrietta's BMW, if she decided to grace them with her presence. But the driveway was empty. Warren parked and stepped out into the biting cold. His breath formed clouds in the December air as he walked toward the front door, his footsteps crunching on gravel and snow. He tried the handle. Locked. He knocked, then knocked again louder. Nothing. He pulled out his phone and called Alexis. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. He tried Kay's number. Same thing. A knot of unease formed in his stomach. Warren walked around to the back door, his shoes sinking into the snow. Also locked. He peered through the kitchen window. The lights were off, the room empty. No signs of dinner preparation, no signs of anyone at all. His lawyer's mind began cataloging facts, looking for the logic. They'd said they were here. Alexis had texted 20 minutes ago. Their cars weren't in the driveway. The house was dark and locked. He returned to the front door and noticed something he'd missed before. A piece of paper tucked into the door frame, fluttering slightly in the wind. Warren pulled it free and unfolded it. The handwriting was Alexis's, looping and feminine. "Warren, we're in Hawaii. Last-minute trip. Mom paid for everything. We deserve a real vacation. Deal with your brat yourself this Christmas. He's inside. There's food in the pantry." Warren read it again. Then a third time. The words didn't make sense. They'd driven here separately. Where was Ethan? Why would they leave? His blood turned to ice. He's inside. Warren tried the door again, then stepped back and examined it. Solid oak. He could break a window, but that would take time. He ran back to his car, popped the trunk, and grabbed the tire iron. His hands shook, not from cold, but from a rising tide of rage and fear he couldn't name yet. The side window shattered on the second blow. Warren reached through, careful of the glass, and unlocked the door from the inside. He pushed it open and stepped into the front hallway. "Ethan." His voice echoed through the empty house. "Ethan, where are you?" Silence. Warren moved through the house, turning on lights, calling his son's name. The living room was empty. The kitchen, untouched. He took the stairs two at a time, checking bedrooms, bathrooms, the attic. Nothing. His heart hammered against his ribs. Then he heard it, a small sound, barely more than a whimper, coming from somewhere below him. The basement. Warren hadn't even thought to check there. The Barnetts used it for storage, and the door was usually locked because Kay didn't want children running around down there unsupervised. He found the door off the kitchen and tried the handle. Locked. He didn't hesitate this time. He kicked it hard, once, twice, and on the third kick, the frame splintered and the door flew open. The stairs descended into darkness. Warren fumbled for a light switch and found it. A single bare bulb flickered on, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor below. "Dad." The voice was so small, so broken, that Warren almost didn't recognize it as his son's. He rushed down the stairs and stopped cold at what he saw. Ethan was chained to one of the support pillars in the center of the basement. An actual chain, wrapped twice around the pillar and locked with a padlock, attached to a smaller chain around his son's ankle. The boy was sitting on the cold concrete floor, wearing only a thin t-shirt and pajama pants. His face was pale, his lips tinged blue. There were dark circles under his eyes and his cheeks looked sunken. A plastic bowl sat a few feet away, empty except for some dried residue that might have been oatmeal. A metal water bottle lay on its side, also empty. "Ethan." Warren's voice cracked. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides and dropped to his knees beside his son. The boy was shivering violently. "Oh God, Ethan. How long have you been down here?" "I don't know." Ethan's teeth chattered. "They brought me down 2 days ago, I think. Grandma Kay said I was being punished. Mom said I was too much trouble and you'd figure it out when you got here." Tears started rolling down his cheeks. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to be trouble." "You're not trouble. You've never been trouble." Warren pulled off his coat and wrapped it around his son, then examined the chain. The padlock was heavy-duty, industrial. He'd need bolt cutters. "I'm going to get you out of here. I promise." He started to stand, but Ethan grabbed his arm with surprising strength for such a weakened child. "Dad, wait." Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper, and his eyes darted toward the stairs as if afraid someone might be listening. "They don't know I have this." The boy reached into his pajama pants pocket and pulled out a small black object about the size of a car key fob. Warren recognized it immediately. It was a mini recording device, one of those high-end ones that could capture audio and video for days on a single charge. "Where did you get this?" "You left it on your desk at home." "I took it last week because..." Ethan's lower lip trembled. "Because I wanted to show you. I wanted proof. But I wasn't brave enough. And then they brought me here and I hid it, and I've been recording everything." Warren took the device with shaking hands. The little red light was still blinking. Still recording. He pressed the playback button and held it close to his ear. Voices filled the tiny speaker. Alexis's voice, Kay's voice, Henrietta's laugh. "Think he'll actually come for the brat?" "Warren? He's too wrapped up in his cases to notice what's happening in his own house. By the time he figures it out, we'll be on a beach with Mai Tais. What if he finds him? So what? The basement door is locked. He doesn't have a key. And even if he gets in, what's he going to do? The boy's been nothing but trouble since he was born. Warren knows it. Everyone knows it. Mom, are you sure about this? I mean, leaving him chained up. Don't go soft on me, Alexis. You're the one who said you couldn't stand being around him anymore. You're the one who said your life would be better without." Warren's hand clenched around the device, and he stopped the playback. His vision had gone red at the edges. Every instinct screamed at him to get in his car, drive to the airport, find them, and... No, that's not how this worked. That's not how justice worked. He looked at his son, this brave, terrified little boy who'd been smart enough to gather evidence even while being abused and abandoned. Warren had spent his entire career fighting for people in courtrooms, using the law as his weapon. But this was different. This was his son. This was his family. And the law, he knew, would never be enough. "Ethan," Warren said quietly, "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" The boy nodded. "We're going to get you out of here, get you warm and fed and safe. And then..." Warren's jaw tightened. "Then we're going to make sure they never hurt you again. I promise you that. He stood and ran back upstairs, searching through drawers and closets until he found a toolbox in the garage. The bolt cutters made quick work of the chain. Warren scooped Ethan into his arms. The boy weighed almost nothing and carried him up to the main floor. In the kitchen, he cranked up the heat and sat Ethan at the table, wrapping him in every blanket he could find. He heated up soup from the pantry, and while Ethan ate slowly, his stomach couldn't handle too much at once. Warren's mind raced through possibilities. He could call the police right now, show them the recording, have his wife and mother-in-law arrested when they stepped off the plane. They'd face charges of child endangerment, child abuse, false imprisonment. Maybe they'd serve a few years. Maybe. But Warren had been a lawyer too long to trust the system completely. He'd seen too many cases where the wealthy and well-connected walked away with slaps on the wrist. Kay Barnett knew people. Alexis could afford the best defense attorneys. They'd claim it was a misunderstanding, that they'd left food and water, that Ethan was prone to exaggeration. They'd paint Warren as a vengeful husband trying to win a custody battle. No, this required something more. Something they wouldn't see coming. Something that would ensure they paid for every moment of suffering they'd inflicted on his son. Warren pulled out his phone and started making calls. Not to the police. Not yet. First, he called his private investigator, a former FBI agent named Nolan Rivera who'd helped him on several cases. I need everything you can find on Kay Barnett and her financial dealings. Everything. I don't care if it's legal or not. I want to know where every dollar came from and where it went. Second, he called his colleague Greg Branch, a criminal defense attorney who specialized in plea deals and knew every prosecutor in the state. Hypothetically, if someone recorded evidence of a serious crime without consent, how would that play in court? Third, and most importantly, he called Clark Waters, Kay's son from her first marriage and Alexis's half-brother. Clark had always been the black sheep of the family, and he'd had his own issues with Kay over the years. Warren had helped him once with a legal matter, pro bono. It was time to call in that favor. Clark, it's Warren. I need to talk to you. It's about your mother and what she's done to my son. By the time Ethan had finished his second bowl of soup and fallen asleep on the couch, Warren had assembled his team and his plan. The recording device sat on the kitchen table, its evidence damning and irrefutable. They wanted a vacation in Hawaii? Fine. Let them enjoy it. Because when they came back, Warren Hardy would be waiting. And he'd make sure they understood exactly what happened when you hurt his son. He sat beside Ethan and watched the boy sleep, one hand resting protectively on his son's shoulder. The rage that burned in his chest was cold now, calculated. He'd learned something important in his years as a trial lawyer. The best revenge wasn't hot and immediate. It was patient, methodical, and absolutely devastating. Warren pulled out a notepad and began to write, filling pages with names, dates, evidence, and the intricate web he was about to weave. His wife and her mother thought they were clever. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Ethan lay in the bed, hooked up to N4 that was slowly rehydrating his small body. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Patricia Moses, had been horrified when Warren brought Ethan in. Dehydration, mild hypothermia, malnutrition, and evidence of older injuries. Bruises in various stages of healing, a poorly healed fracture in his left wrist that no one had bothered to treat properly. Mr. Hardy, Dr. Moses said quietly, standing beside Warren outside the room. I'm required by law to report this. The injuries, the circumstances, this is clear abuse and neglect. I know, Warren said, and I want you to document everything. Every bruise, every injury, every indication of long-term abuse. I want photographs, detailed medical reports, the works. Of course, I'll contact Child Protective Services. No. Warren's voice was sharp, then he softened it. Not yet. Please. Give me 48 hours. I have reasons, good reasons, and I promise you that the people responsible will face consequences. But if CPS gets involved right now, it might complicate things in ways that could actually protect the abusers. Dr. Moses studied him for a long moment. You're a lawyer. I am. And you have a plan. I do. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. 48 hours. But Mr. Hardy, if I don't hear from you by then, I'm making that call regardless. Fair enough. Warren returned to Ethan's bedside and held his son's hand. The boy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Dad, I'm here, buddy. You're safe now. Are they coming back? Yes, in a few days. But don't worry. Warren squeezed his hand gently. When they do, everything's going to be different. I promise. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, I heard Grandma, Kay, talking to Mom. Before they left, she said you were too weak to do anything about it. That you just take it because you always do. Warren felt something dark and fierce settle in his chest. Too weak. He'd spent 8 years trying to keep the peace, trying to be understanding, trying to make his marriage work despite Kay's constant interference and Alexis's growing coldness toward their son. He'd told himself it was being mature, being the bigger person. He'd been a fool. People make mistakes about me sometimes, Warren said quietly. They think being patient means being weak. They think being kind means being a pushover. He looked at his son. But there's a difference between choosing not to fight and not being able to fight. And they're about to learn that difference. Over the next day, while Ethan recovered in the hospital, Warren set his plan in motion. Nolan Rivera called back with the first pieces of information, and they were more interesting than Warren had hoped. Kay Barnett's been running a scheme, Nolan said, his voice crackling over the phone. She's been using her late husband's veterans benefits to claim medical expenses for treatments she never received. We're talking about at least $200,000 over the past 5 years. Classic fraud. Can you prove it? I can get you the documentation. But Warren, there's more. She's also been taking money from a family trust that was supposed to be split between her 3 kids. She's the trustee, and she's been draining it for personal expenses. That Hawaii trip? Paid for with trust money. Warren smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Keep digging. I want everything. His conversation with Greg Branch had been equally productive. The recording is admissible, Greg confirmed. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state, and Ethan, as one of the parties being discussed, had every right to record. Add in the fact that it documents crimes being committed, and you're golden. This is evidence that could put them both away for years. Good. I'm going to need you to coordinate with the DA's office when the time comes. But Greg, I want to control the timing on this. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they should enjoy their vacation. Let them think they got away with it. Let them relax, have fun, spend more of that trust money. Because when they come back, the hammer falls all at once. Clark Waters met Warren at a coffee shop near the hospital. Kay's son from her first marriage was in his early 40s, with the worn look of someone who'd spent years fighting his mother's manipulations. He slid into the booth across from Warren with a grim expression. I always knew she was cruel, Clark said without preamble. But this? Jesus, Warren. Ethan's just a kid. I know. Warren slid his phone across the table with the recording queued up. Listen to this. Clark's face grew darker with every word. When it finished, he looked like he wanted to put his fist through the table. What do you need from me? Access to the trust documents. You're one of the beneficiaries, which means you have a legal right to review them. I need evidence of how she's been stealing from you and your siblings. Henrietta won't help. She's too far up Mom's ass. I don't need Henrietta. I just need you. And I need you to be willing to testify about what Kay's been doing to that trust for years. Your trust. Your money that she stole. Clark didn't hesitate. Whatever you need. That woman has controlled and manipulated everyone around her for decades. If you can finally make her pay, I'm in. Warren spent that night in a chair beside Ethan's hospital bed, his laptop open, building his case like he would for trial. But this wasn't just about winning in court. This was about making sure that when Kay and Alexis realized what was happening, they understood the full weight of their mistake. He reviewed the recording again, taking notes on every incriminating statement. He organized the financial documents Nolan was sending him. He drafted legal motions and coordinated with Greg on timing. And slowly, piece by piece, the trap took shape. On the second day, Ethan was well enough to leave the hospital. Warren took him to a hotel rather than back to their house. The home he'd shared with Alexis felt contaminated now, and he wanted Ethan somewhere safe and neutral. They ordered room service and watched Christmas movies, and slowly, Warren saw some of the fear leave his son's eyes. Dad, Ethan said that evening, curled up beside Warren on the hotel bed. What's going to happen when they come back? Warren thought about how to answer. His son deserved the truth, but he also deserved not to carry the weight of what was coming. They're going to face consequences for what they did, Warren said carefully. Real consequences. And you and I are going to be okay. Better than okay. Will I have to see them again? Not if you don't want to. I promise you, Ethan, you will never be alone with them again. You will never be hurt again. Whatever it takes, I'm going to make sure you're safe. Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, I was really scared. In the basement. I thought maybe they were right. That I was too much trouble. That nobody wanted me. Warren's throat tightened. He pulled his son close, feeling the boy's small frame against his chest. Listen to me. You are not trouble. You have never been trouble. You are smart and brave and kind, and I am so proud to be your father. What they did, that's about them, not you. That's about their cruelty, their selfishness. But it ends now. I swear to you, it ends now. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Warren received a text from an unknown number. When he opened it, he saw it was from Alexis, sent from a different phone. Having an amazing time. Hawaii is beautiful. Hope you're enjoying babysitting. Warren stared at the message for a long moment. Then he took a screenshot, added it to his evidence folder, and replied with a single word. Good. Let her think she'd won. Let them all think they'd won. Because in 3 days, when they landed at Philadelphia International Airport, Warren Hardy would be waiting. And the life they thought they were returning to would no longer exist. Nolan Rivera pulled up security footage on his laptop and turned the screen toward Warren. They were in a conference room at Nolan's office, the space cluttered with file boxes and surveillance equipment. On the screen, grainy black and white video showed the interior of Kay Barnett's basement. This is from the camera they installed 6 months ago, Nolan explained. Kay told the security company she wanted monitoring in the basement because of valuable antiques. But look at what it actually captured. Warren watched as the footage jumped between dates. Each clip showed Ethan in various states of distress, locked in the basement on different occasions, crying, begging to be let out. In one clip, Kay descended the stairs and shoved the boy against the wall, shouting something the audio barely picked up. In another, Alexis stood at the top of the stairs, watching impassively as 6-year-old Ethan screamed for his mother. They documented their own abuse, Warren said quietly. They were so arrogant, they didn't even think to check what the cameras were recording. Gets better, Nolan said, clicking to another folder. I pulled the full log from the security company. The camera was activated 37 times in the past 6 months specifically for the basement. Every single time, Ethan was locked down there. Shortest duration was 2 hours. Longest was almost 2 days. That was 3 weeks ago when you were at that conference in Boston. Warren's hands clenched into fists. 3 weeks ago, he'd been arguing a case 3 hours away, staying in a hotel, while his son was chained in a basement. And Alexis had told him everything was fine at home. The security company will testify? Warren asked. Already have their statement. They're horrified. Apparently, Kay told them the cameras were for monitoring storage areas, nothing about a child being in the space. Warren nodded slowly. What else do you have? Nolan pulled out another folder. Kay Barnett's finances are a mess of fraud. The Veterans Benefits scam goes back 7 years. She's also been claiming rental income on a property she doesn't own. Dummy LLC that doesn't exist beyond paperwork. And the trust fund situation Clark told you about? She's taken over $400,000 in unauthorized distributions. Her own financial advisor sent her 2 letters questioning the transactions. She fired him. Can we get the advisor to talk? Already did. Randall Melton works at Cornerstone Financial. He's been keeping copies of everything because he suspected she might try to blame him eventually. Guy's eager to cooperate. Said Kay threatened to sue him when he questioned her. Warren absorbed this, his mind working through the implications. What had started as a case of child abuse and neglect was expanding into something much larger. Kay Barnett wasn't just a cruel grandmother. She was a criminal who'd been running schemes for years, and nobody had stopped her because nobody had looked close enough. And the Hawaii trip? Warren asked. Paid for with trust money. $15,000 for a week-long vacation. First-class flights, premium resort, the works. Henrietta Barnett went with them too. All charged to the trust account. Warren stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city. Snow was falling again, coating everything in white. 3 days from now, Kay, Alexis, and Henrietta would return to this same snow, expecting to resume their normal lives. They'd expect to find Warren cowed and compliant, probably having taken Ethan home and said nothing about what he'd found. They had no idea what was waiting. I need you to do one more thing, Warren said. I need you to contact every person Kay and Alexis have wronged over the years. Every family member who got cut out of the trust. Every person Kay's manipulated or stolen from. Every one of Alexis's old friends who mysteriously got pushed away. I want testimonials, statements, anything that establishes a pattern of behavior. You're building more than a criminal case, Nolan observed. I'm building a complete picture. When this goes to court, and it will go to court, I want the judge and jury to see exactly who these people are. No room for sympathy, no room for doubt. Warren's phone buzzed with a text from Greg Branch. DA's office is interested. They want to meet. Warren texted back. Not yet. 3 more days. His phone buzzed again, this time with another message from Alexis's temporary number. You should see Henrietta's new bikini. She's getting so much attention. Worth every penny of this trip. Worth every penny of stolen money, Warren thought. He screenshot that message too. Back at the hotel, Ethan was working on a puzzle that Warren had bought him. The boy looked healthier already, color returning to his cheeks, the haunted look in his eyes beginning to fade. A child psychologist named Dr. Lorraine Hickman had visited that morning, and she'd spent 2 hours talking with Ethan while Warren waited outside. He's remarkably resilient, Dr. Hickman had told Warren afterward. But he's also been systematically emotionally and physically abused for at least a year, probably longer. The recording device shows incredible presence of mind for a child his age. He knew something was wrong, and he tried to protect himself the only way he could. Will he be okay? With proper support and therapy, yes. But Mr. Hardy, it's crucial that he knows you believe him and that you're taking action. Children who've been abused by family members often struggle with feelings of guilt and responsibility. They need to see that the adults who hurt them face real consequences. That conversation had solidified Warren's resolve. This wasn't just about revenge or justice in abstract terms. This was about showing his son that standing up to abusers mattered, that speaking the truth mattered, that the powerful and cruel didn't always win. Warren sat down beside Ethan and helped with the puzzle. After a while, Ethan said, "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "What's going to happen to Mom?" Warren had been dreading this question. He chose his words carefully. "Your mom made some very bad choices. She hurt you, and she let other people hurt you, and that's not okay. There are going to be consequences for those choices. But Ethan, I want you to know that none of this is your fault. Adults are supposed to protect children, not harm them. She failed at that. She failed you. Do you think she loves me?" The question pierced through Warren like a blade. How do you tell a 6-year-old that his mother might not be capable of real love? That some people are too damaged, too selfish, too cruel? "I think," Warren said slowly, "that your mother has problems I didn't see clearly enough. I think she made choices that no loving parent would make. And I think right now, the most important thing is making sure you're safe and loved. Which you are. I love you more than anything in this world." Ethan nodded, fitting another puzzle piece into place. Okay. That evening, Warren met with Greg Branch at a restaurant downtown. Greg slid a folder across the table. "The DA is on board," Greg said. "I showed them the recording and the financial evidence. They're ready to file charges the moment Kay and Alexis are back in the country. We're talking multiple felonies, child endangerment, child abuse, fraud, embezzlement, false imprisonment. Alexis is looking at 10 to 15 years. Kay could get 20. And Henrietta? Harder case there. She was present and aware, but didn't directly participate in the abuse. They might get her on conspiracy or accessory charges, but she'll probably take a plea deal." Warren nodded. "I want them arrested at the airport. Publicly. I want everyone to see it." Greg raised an eyebrow. "That's aggressive. They were aggressive when they chained my son in a basement and left him to die. They were aggressive when they stole hundreds of thousands of dollars. They get no mercy from me." "Fair enough. I'll coordinate with airport police. But Warren, you need to be prepared for what comes after. Alexis is going to fight this. Kay will hire the best lawyers money can buy, or rather, money she's stolen. This is going to get ugly." "I know." Warren leaned back in his chair. "But I have something they don't have. I have the truth, I have evidence, and I have a child who nearly died because of their cruelty. When a jury sees Ethan, when they hear his testimony, when they see those recordings, there's no defense attorney in the world who can spin that into anything other than what it is. You're sure you want to put Ethan through testifying?" Warren had thought about this extensively. The idea of putting his son on a witness stand, Making him relive the trauma was agonizing. But Dr. Hickman had said something that stuck with him. Sometimes, testifying can be empowering for abuse victims. It gives them a voice, a platform to tell their truth. With proper preparation and support, it can actually be part of the healing process. If we need to, yes, Warren said. But I'm going to do everything possible to make sure the evidence is so overwhelming that it doesn't come to that. I want guilty pleas. I want them to admit what they did. Greg nodded slowly. You've changed, you know. When I met you 5 years ago, you were all about mediation, settlement, keeping things civil. I had different priorities then. I thought maintaining relationships and keeping the peace was what mattered most. Warren's jaw tightened. I was wrong. Sometimes, the only appropriate response to evil is to destroy it completely. The next day, Warren received an unexpected visitor at the hotel. Clark Waters arrived with another woman, a tired-looking middle-aged woman with kind eyes. Warren, this isn't Booth. She used to work for my mother as a housekeeper. And sat down nervously, clutching a purse in her lap. Mr. Waters said you wanted to know about Mrs. Barnett. About what she's really like. Anything you can tell me would be helpful. And took a deep breath. I worked for her for 3 years. I quit 6 months ago because I couldn't stand watching what she did anymore. She was terrible to that little boy, your son. She'd lock him in rooms as punishment for the smallest things. A spilled drink, talking too loud, existing in her space. And your wife. Anne's voice dropped. Your wife just let it happen. Sometimes she participated. Did you ever see them hurt Ethan physically? Once. Mrs. Barnett slapped him so hard he fell down. He was maybe 5 years old. I tried to intervene, and she fired me on the spot. Told me if I said anything to anyone, she'd make sure I never worked in this county again. Why are you coming forward now? Anne's eyes filled with tears. Because I should have said something then. I was scared of her, scared of losing my job, and I told myself it wasn't my place. But I knew it was wrong. When Clark called me and told me what they did, she shook her head. I can't stay silent anymore. That poor baby. I'll testify. I'll tell everything I saw. Warren felt another piece click into place. Thank you, Anne. Your testimony could make a real difference. After she left, Clark said, there are others. A babysitter who quit because of how Alexis treated Ethan. A neighbor who suspected something was wrong, but didn't report it. My sister's old college roommate who stopped being friends with her because of how cruel she became. Once I started asking around, people wanted to talk. They've been waiting for someone to finally stand up to my mother. Get me statements from all of them. Record interviews if they're willing. I want everything documented. That evening, Warren received a phone call from an unknown number. When he answered, a cool female voice said, Mr. Hardy? This is Henrietta Barnett. Warren's grip tightened on the phone. Henrietta, I need to talk to you. In person. Alone. It's important. I have nothing to say to you. Please. Her voice cracked slightly. I know what you must think of me, but there are things you don't understand. Things about Mom and Alexis. I can help you. Warren's instinct was to hang up, but his lawyer's curiosity won out. Fine. Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Market Street. 10 a.m. And Henrietta? If this is some kind of game, I swear. It's not a game. I promise. Warren arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, chose a table in the back with a clear view of the entrance, and waited. Henrietta arrived exactly on time, looking dramatically different from the confident, sneering woman he was used to seeing. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she carried herself like someone who hadn't slept in days. She sat down across from him without ordering coffee. Thank you for meeting me. You have 5 minutes. I deserve that. Henrietta took a shaky breath. I'm not going to make excuses for what I did, what I didn't do. I was there. I saw how they treated Ethan. I should have stopped it, and I didn't. That makes me guilty too. Then why are you here? Because I'm done protecting them. Because. She pulled out her phone and set it on the table. Because I've been recording things too. Not for the same reasons as Ethan. At first, I did it because Mom told me to. She wanted evidence of Warren being a bad father in case Alexis decided to divorce you and go for full custody. But the more I recorded, the more I realized what I was really capturing. Evidence of their abuse. Their cruelty. Their crimes. Warren picked up the phone and scrolled through the files. Hours of recordings, going back months. His pulse quickened. Why the sudden change of heart? Henrietta's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Because I looked at that little boy chained in our basement, and I saw myself when I was young. Mom treated me the same way. Locked me in rooms, told me I was worthless, made me feel like I deserved punishment for existing. Dad was too weak to stop her. Clark got away by cutting her off completely. But I stayed. I learned to be like her because it was easier than being her victim, and watching her do the same thing to Ethan. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't be that person anymore. Warren studied her, looking for signs of deception. He saw only exhaustion and genuine remorse. If you testify against them, you'll face charges too. I know. My lawyer said I could probably get a plea deal if I cooperate fully. Probation, community service, counseling. But I'm willing to accept whatever consequences come. She met his eyes. I just want to do the right thing for once in my life. That boy deserves better. He always did. Warren made a decision. Greg Branch is the prosecutor's contact. Call him. Tell him everything. Turn over those recordings. And Henrietta? If you're lying to me, if this is some scheme you and your mother cooked up, it's not. I swear on everything. I'm done being my mother's puppet. After she left, Warren called Greg and explained the situation. We just got another witness and hours of additional evidence. Have her come in immediately and get a formal statement. This is better than I hoped, Greg said. With Henrietta flipping, the case becomes airtight. Kay and Alexis have nowhere to hide. Warren allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The trap was complete. Every piece was in place. Tomorrow night, Kay, Alexis, and Henrietta were scheduled to return from Hawaii. But Henrietta would never board that plane. She was already cooperating with authorities. That left just Kay and Alexis, flying home with no idea that their world was about to implode. Warren spent that final day before their return making sure Ethan was secure. He'd already filed for an emergency custody order, which a judge had granted within hours of seeing the evidence. He'd secured a new apartment, had already moved their essential belongings out of the house he'd shared with Alexis. He'd enrolled Ethan in a new school for after the holidays, far from Kay's influence. Most importantly, he'd spent hours with his son, reading to him, playing games, just being present in a way he realized he hadn't been enough before. Ethan was still quiet, still healing, but there was a lightness to him that hadn't been there before. Dad, Ethan said that evening, are you scared? Of what? Of tomorrow. When they come back. Warren considered the question. No, I'm not scared. Are you? Ethan shook his head. Not anymore. Because you promised to protect me. And you keep your promises. Always, Warren said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. That night, Warren couldn't sleep. He stood by the hotel window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about how quickly life could change. A week ago, he'd been preparing for a normal Christmas, ignorant of the horror his son was experiencing. Now, he was hours away from destroying his wife and mother-in-law's lives. He felt no guilt about it. None at all. His phone buzzed with one last message from Alexis, heading to airport. See you soon. Hope the brat wasn't too much trouble. Warren didn't reply. Instead, he forwarded the message to Greg Branch with a note. One more piece of evidence for the file. Tomorrow, at 4:37 p.m., Flight 2847 from Honolulu would touch down at Philadelphia International Airport. Kay and Alexis would walk through the gate, probably laughing about their vacation, secure in their belief that they'd gotten away with everything. And Warren Hardy would be there, watching from a distance, as federal agents and local police moved in for the arrest. It was going to be a very different homecoming than they anticipated. Philadelphia International Airport was crowded with holiday travelers, the terminal echoing with announcements and the rolling of luggage wheels. Warren stood near the arrival gate for Flight 2847, positioned where he could see but not be immediately seen. Beside him stood Nolan Rivera, and nearby, visible only if you knew to look for them, were 4 plainclothes police officers and 2 FBI agents. The flight status board updated. Landed. Warren's heart rate increased, but his hands were steady. He'd spent the morning in meetings with the district attorney, going over every piece of evidence one final time. The charges were extensive enough that the DA had remarked, "We could try them separately for a dozen different crimes and win every case." Ethan was with Dr. Hickman at a safe location. Warren hadn't wanted his son anywhere near this, though Ethan had been brave enough to say he could handle it. But a 6-year-old shouldn't have to watch his mother being arrested, no matter what she'd done. Passengers began emerging from the gate. A young couple with a baby. An elderly man struggling with an oversized suitcase. A group of college students, suntanned and laughing. And then he saw them. Kay Barnett emerged first, wearing an expensive designer outfit, oversized sunglasses perched on her head. She was laughing at something, pulling a rolling suitcase behind her. She looked relaxed, refreshed, happy. Alexis appeared right behind her, similarly dressed, checking her phone. Even from a distance, Warren could see she was smiling. His wife, the woman he'd built a life with, the mother of his child, looked like she had no cares in the world. They walked through the gate area, heading toward baggage claim, completely oblivious. Warren gave Nolan a slight nod. Nolan spoke into a small radio. Targets acquired. Green light. What happened next unfolded almost in slow motion. The 4 plainclothes officers materialized from the crowd, moving with practiced precision. The lead officer, a stern woman named Detective Roseanne Paul, approached Kay first. Kay Barnett. Kay turned, confusion crossing her face. Yes. I'm Detective Paul with the Philadelphia Police Department. You're under arrest for child endangerment, child abuse, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. She pulled out handcuffs. Put your hands behind your back. The color drained from Kay's face. What? There must be some mistake. No mistake, ma'am. Behind your back now. Alexis had frozen, her phone still in her hand. Another officer approached her. Alexis Hardy? You're also under arrest for child endangerment, child abuse, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. Warren. Alexis's voice cracked across the terminal. Her eyes had found him in the crowd, and her expression shifted from shock to panic to fury in rapid succession. Warren, what are you doing? What is this? Warren stepped forward, close enough now for her to see him clearly. He said nothing, just watched as the officers cuffed both women. Around them, other travelers had stopped, pulling out phones to record the scene. Airport security moved in to create a perimeter. You can't do this, Kay shouted, struggling against the handcuffs. Do you know who I am? I'll have your badges for this. I know people. So do I, Warren said quietly, though he doubted she heard him over her ranting. Alexis wasn't shouting. She was staring at Warren with an expression he'd never seen before, genuine fear mixed with realization. She knew. She understood that something had fundamentally changed. Where's Ethan? She asked, her voice barely audible. Safe, Warren replied. Far away from you. He's my son. No. Warren's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He's your victim. There's a difference. The FBI agents had taken over, preparing to transport both women to a federal holding facility. Greg Branch appeared beside Warren, having watched the arrests from another angle. That went smoothly, Greg observed. Almost too smoothly. Don't jinx it. We've got them. The DA's office is filing formal charges within the hour. Both of them will be denied bail based on the severity of the crimes and the financial resources Kay has access to. Warren watched as they led his wife and mother-in-law away. Kay was still protesting loudly, threatening lawsuits, dropping names of lawyers and judges. Alexis had gone silent, her eyes locked on Warren until the very moment she disappeared from view. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Hickman. Ethan just asked if you were okay. I told him you were fine. He wanted me to tell you he's proud of you. Warren's throat tightened. He typed back, on my way. But before he left the airport, he had one more stop to make. He walked to baggage claim, found Kay's and Alexis's luggage on the carousel, designer bags covered in vacation tags, and handed them over to Nolan. Evidence, Warren said. I want every receipt, every credit card statement, every piece of paper in those bags examined. They spent trust money on that trip. I want proof of every dollar. You got it. Warren drove back to the hotel through the evening traffic, his mind already shifting to the next phase. The arrests were just the beginning. Now came the legal battle, the trial, the process of ensuring that what they'd done to Ethan resulted in meaningful consequences. When he arrived, Ethan was sitting with Dr. Hickman, working on a new puzzle. The boy looked up when Warren entered, his face brightening. Dad, did it happen? Warren sat down beside him. It happened. They're in custody. Are they going to jail? Yes. For a very long time. Ethan was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then he said, Good. Dr. Hickman caught Warren's eye and gave him an approving nod. They discussed this moment, how important it was for Ethan to see justice being done, to understand that his suffering hadn't been dismissed or ignored. That evening, after Dr. Hickman left, Warren and Ethan ordered pizza, and watched a movie. It was ordinary, domestic, peaceful, everything the past week hadn't been. Ethan fell asleep halfway through, his head resting against Warren's arm, and Warren just sat there, protecting his son even in sleep. His phone buzzed with updates throughout the night. Greg sent him a message. Both denied bail. Formal arraignment tomorrow. Judge was horrified by the evidence. Nolan sent photos. Found receipts in Kay's luggage for over $20,000 in purchases on the Hawaii trip. All charged to trust accounts. Clark Waters sent. The family can't believe it. Well, most of them. Some of the older relatives are trying to claim this is all a misunderstanding. But the younger generation is on your side. We're preparing our own legal action against the estate. And finally, unexpectedly, a message from Henrietta. I testified before the grand jury today. Told them everything. My lawyer says the DA is willing to offer me probation and mandatory counseling in exchange for full cooperation. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm not backing out. I'm seeing this through. Warren replied, that's between you and your conscience. But you're making the right choice now. The next morning, Warren and Ethan had breakfast in the hotel restaurant. It was December 27th, 3 days after Christmas. Most families would have spent yesterday recovering from holiday celebrations, opening gifts, being together. Warren and his son had spent it in the aftermath of arrests and trauma. But sitting across from Ethan now, watching the boy eat pancakes and talk about the new puzzle they'd started, Warren felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for his marriage. That was dead and buried. Not for reconciliation with Kay's family. That bridge had burned to ash. But hope for his son, for their future together, for the possibility of healing. Dad? Ethan said suddenly. When we get our new place, can I have a dog? Warren smiled. Yeah, buddy. I think we can arrange that. The arraignment took place the following day. Warren attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Greg Branch beside him. Kay and Alexis were brought in wearing orange jumpsuits, their wrists and ankles shackled. The transformation from the confident, well-dressed women at the airport was stark. Kay's lawyer, a prominent defense attorney named Randall Melton, different from her financial advisor, argued strenuously for bail. Your Honor, my client is a respected member of the community with deep roots in the area. She poses no flight risk. Counselor, Judge Jeffrey Haynes interrupted. Your client is charged with systematically abusing and nearly killing a 6-year-old child. She has significant financial resources, much of which appears to have been obtained fraudulently. And the evidence presented suggests a pattern of manipulative and criminal behavior spanning years. Bail is denied. Alexis's lawyer, a younger woman named Susanna Phillips, tried a different tack. Your Honor, my client is a mother. A mother who chained her son in a basement and abandoned him to potentially die, the judge said flatly. Bail denied. Both defendants will remain in custody pending trial. Kay's face had gone pale. Alexis looked like she might faint. They were led out of the courtroom, and for the first time, both women looked genuinely afraid. As Warren left the courthouse, a reporter approached him. Mr. Hardy, can you comment on the charges against your wife? No comment. Warren kept walking. Is it true your son was found chained in a basement? Warren stopped, turned, and looked directly at the camera the reporter was holding. My son is a 6-year-old child who survived an experience no child should ever face. He survived because he's brave and smart and strong. And now he's getting the justice he deserves. That's all I'll say. The story hit the news that evening. Prominent attorney's wife arrested in child abuse case. The details were salacious enough that it quickly spread across local media, then picked up by national outlets. Warren's phone rang constantly with interview requests, book deal offers, true crime podcasters wanting his story. He ignored them all. This wasn't about publicity or attention. This was about protecting his son and ensuring that the people who heard him paid the price. Over the following weeks, the case built momentum. The grand jury returned indictments on multiple counts. Additional victims came forward, not of abuse, but of Kay's financial schemes. 3 other families she defrauded. 2 former employees with stories of mistreatment. The portrait that emerged was of a woman who'd spent decades manipulating and exploiting everyone around her. Alexis's case was somewhat different. Her lawyer tried to argue that she'd been under Kay's influence, that Kay had psychologically controlled her. But the recordings told a different story. Alexis had been an active participant, not a victim herself. In February, Both women were offered plea deals. Kay refused hers, insisting on taking the case to trial. "I won't be bullied," she told reporters from jail. This is a vindictive husband trying to destroy his wife. Alexis, however, accepted. In exchange for pleading guilty to child endangerment and conspiracy, she would serve 8 to 15 years with possibility of parole after 8. She would also permanently lose all parental rights to Ethan. Warren was in the courtroom when she entered her plea. Alexis stood before the judge, her voice shaking as she admitted to each charge. "Do you understand that by entering this plea, you are admitting you endangered and abused your son?" Judge Haynes asked. Alexis nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Your Honor. And do you acknowledge that your actions could have resulted in his death?" A long pause. Then, barely audible, "Yes." Warren felt nothing watching this. No satisfaction, no pity, no anger. Just a cold, empty certainty that this was necessary. After the hearing, Alexis's lawyer approached him in the hallway. "My client would like to speak with you. Briefly. She wants to apologize." "No. Mr. Hardy, please. She had 8 years to be a mother to our son. She had a million opportunities to protect him, to love him, to do the basic things a parent should do. She chose cruelty instead. I have nothing to say to her, and more importantly, Ethan has nothing he needs to hear from her." The lawyer nodded sadly and walked away. Kay's trial began in April. Warren attended every day, sitting in the gallery with a notepad, taking notes like he would for any case. The prosecution's case was devastating. They played the recordings, all of them, including Henrietta's additional footage. They showed the security camera footage of Ethan locked in the basement. They brought in Booth to testify about what she'd witnessed. They paraded the financial records showing years of fraud and theft. Clark Waters testified about how his mother had systematically stolen from the family trust. Nolan Rivera testified about the evidence he'd uncovered. Dr. Moses from the hospital testified about Ethan's condition when Warren brought him in. And then, on the 8th day of trial, the prosecution called Ethan Hardy to the stand. Warren had fought against this, but Ethan himself had insisted. "I want to tell them what happened, Dad. I want everyone to know." Dr. Hickman had worked with Ethan for months, preparing him. The courtroom had been cleared of media, and special accommodations had been made for the child witness. But nothing could fully prepare Warren for watching his 8-year-old son sit in that witness box and describe what had been done to him. Ethan was calm, articulate, and heartbreaking. He answered the prosecutor's questions without crying, though his voice shook at times. "Can you tell the court what happened on December 22nd? The prosecutor asked gently. "Grandma Kay said I was being bad. I wasn't. I was just reading a book in the living room. But she said I was in the way and I needed to be taught a lesson. She told Mom, and Mom said okay. They took me down to the basement." "What happened in the basement?" "They chained my ankle to the pole. Grandma Kay said I'd stay there until Dad came to get me. She said maybe he wouldn't even bother. She said maybe I'd finally learn that I wasn't wanted." The courtroom was silent except for the sound of someone crying softly in the back row. "What did you do?" "I had my dad's recording device. I'd been keeping it in my pocket because I wanted to show him what they said about me when he wasn't around. So I recorded everything. I thought if I had proof, he'd believe me." "Did you think your father wouldn't believe you otherwise?" Ethan looked at Warren, and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I didn't know. I was scared nobody would believe me. That's why I needed proof." Kay's defense attorney tried to cross-examine, suggesting Ethan was confused or had been coached, but the boy held firm. Every question was answered clearly and consistently with all the evidence already presented. When Ethan stepped down from the witness box, he walked directly to Warren, and Warren pulled him into a fierce hug, not caring that everyone in the courtroom was watching. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Haynes showed no mercy. "Mrs. Barnett, in my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You are a danger to any vulnerable person who crosses your path. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison on the fraud charges, to run consecutively with 15 years on the child abuse charges. You will serve 40 years total, without possibility of parole." Kay's face crumbled. For the first time, she seemed to truly understand that this was real, that her life as she'd known it was over. Henrietta, true to her word, had cooperated fully. She received 3 years probation, mandatory psychological counseling, and 500 hours of community service working with child abuse prevention programs. It wasn't enough, but it was something. By the time summer arrived, Warren and Ethan had settled into their new life. The apartment had become a real home, decorated with Ethan's drawings and filled with books. They'd adopted a golden retriever puppy named Max, who followed Ethan everywhere. Warren had cut back his caseload at work, prioritizing time with his son above everything else. Ethan was in therapy twice a week and doing remarkably well. The nightmares had mostly stopped. He laughed more. He'd made friends at his new school. He was, slowly but surely, becoming the child he should have always been allowed to be. Happy, secure, loved. The divorce from Alexis was finalized without contest. She'd signed over everything. The house, the assets, full custody. From prison, she'd written Warren one letter. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I do love Ethan, in my broken way. I wasn't strong enough to stand up to my mother. I wasn't strong enough to be what he needed. I'm sorry. Warren had read it once and then thrown it away. Whether Alexis loved Ethan or not was irrelevant now. Love without protection, without sacrifice, without putting the child's needs first, wasn't real love at all. On a warm evening in June, Warren and Ethan sat on their apartment balcony, watching the sunset. Max was sprawled at their feet, snoring softly. Ethan was working on another puzzle, his small fingers placing pieces with careful precision. Dad, Ethan said after a while, do you think Mom and Grandma Kay think about what they did? Warren considered the question. I think they probably do. Whether they truly understand how wrong it was, I don't know. But that's not really our concern anymore. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. I don't miss them. You don't have to. Is that bad? That I don't miss my mom? Warren pulled his son close. No, buddy. It's not bad. You get to feel however you feel. And right now, what matters is that you're safe and you're healing and you're happy. Everything else is just noise. Ethan nodded and went back to his puzzle. Warren watched him, marveling at the resilience of children, at how this small person had survived such horror and come out the other side still capable of trust, still capable of joy. His phone buzzed with a message from Clark Waters. The trust has been fully audited. Between recovered assets and restitution orders, you and Ethan are getting back everything Kay stole, plus damages. It's substantial. Warren typed back, put it in a college fund for Ethan. And Clark, thank you. For everything. Thank you for finally stopping her. As the sun set over Philadelphia, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Warren felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because the nightmare was over. He knew Ethan would carry scars from this forever. Not because justice had been perfect. No sentence could undo the harm that had been done. But because they'd survived. Because his son was safe. Because the people who'd tried to destroy an innocent child had been stopped, exposed, and punished. Because Warren had kept his promise. Ethan had grabbed his arm that first night and whispered, Dad, they don't know I have this. Help me get justice. And Warren had delivered. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.